In the darkest blackness of human carnage and suffering, police, fire, and EMS intercede on behalf of mankind. God himself reaches out to those who suffer through their hands. Their service is a clear and unmistakable demonstration that God does not abandon people in the storms of life.
If we're looking to change anything, look to change yourself.
Absolutely.
That's
That
it.
is it. Instead of, I think it's so easy for us all to go, if he would just change, or
Right.
if she would
Right.
just change,
Yeah.
then I'll be better. It would be so much easier, but there'll
Yeah.
just be something else.
Or going
you
back to
know?
that point
Yeah.
of where two broken or people that aren't 100% come
Right,
together. You spent most of the relationship trying to fix each other.
Exactly.
And
Yeah,
bring each
right.
other up.
Exactly.
And that comes with so many frustrations.
Right.
It does.
You know, instead of
Yeah.
Yeah.
being at that 100% when you
Yeah.
enter a relationship and say,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
now we can get something done.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, and we all have room for improvement. I know
Absolutely.
that, but just in terms of you two, Julie deserves a whole, complete version of Randy. Randy deserves a whole, complete version of Julie. It doesn't mean that you got your act together,
Right.
but it means that you're never going to stop learning and growing.
Right.
And I think it was you, Randy, that one time said, when you're through learning, you're through, you're done. I mean, that's it, you're done. I've never felt more humble. I've never felt more vulnerable in my life. I mean, I knew so much more when I was 18.
Oh, yes.
My, and like you both, I want to instill what I've learned. I want others to experience happiness and contentment, and if I can share what I've learned and what works for me, and if it works for others, great. So somebody's listening right now and they're thinking, we're on the verge of divorce. I mean, I can't stand my spouse. This just doesn't work. They don't care. This one doesn't care. That one, whatever the circumstances are. Is there ever, and I know this is a loaded question because this has come up several times, is it ever okay to get a divorce? As Christians, would you say, oh no, that's, you never want to break up, you never, I mean, I've had people say that, oh no, I just won't leave him because I'm a Christian and it will be wrong, but yet the guy is unfaithful, he comes home drunk, if he comes home at all, he's doing anything he wants anytime. At a certain point, is it okay to say, whoa, this is not working? I mean, how do you deal with that?
I mean, in cases of abuse, I mean, the best thing is, I mean, here we're sitting in the police department and
Yeah.
it's like you have to put distance.
Yeah.
You know, however that may be. If it's a separation, if it's whatever, but if there's abuse taking place, yeah, it has to be taken
Yep.
care of.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
there again, there's many people that say, no, through thick and thin and through, sickness and in health. Well, that's not proper behavior. So
Right.
I guess that's the,
I would agree. I mean, I would.
Yeah.
I think that the guilt that can be put on, especially within the church, of like, that's it, you're doomed for the rest of your
Right.
life now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, nobody had been divorced in my family. I was the first one. So, I mean, I grew up, I knew my parents weren't really best friends whatsoever, so kids aren't stupid.
but also in that, I do think past generations
Yeah.
didn't just say, well, I just
Right.
think of today's age with the phones, that if this doesn't work, we'll just flip the page and move on to something else.
Yeah.
Generations before said, I know it's not the
together.
best, but we've been taught that when the waters get rough, you just roll a little harder, and I think that's been lost. But there again, you have to have a mission.
Yeah.
If you don't know
Right.
the mission statement, which a lot of marriages don't have a mission statement. They don't. If turbid waters come along, it's like, it's time.
Yeah.
But, you know, I guess that's the big thing is that I always said, if she leaves me, I'm coming with.
Right, yes, vice
know?
versa.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's one of those things that,
Yeah.
you know, you have to have that set ahead of time.
Right.
That, you know, the things that, the cans and the cannots, you know, this cannot ever happen in
Right.
our, and discuss, have those discussions.
Right.
You know, that you can never treat me that way.
Right. That's right.
I can never treat you that way.
Right.
And with every decision, there comes repercussions. So it's
I mean, it would be terrible to, live with somebody, like I told him early, well, it's funny, we were married, I think, 6 months, and I looked at him one day, and I said, who are you, really? And because I said, are you sure, like, you're not this ladies' man? Or because I never met anybody, like, and still to this day, I've never seen his eyes. You can tell a lot by somebody's eyes.
Yeah.
And I've never seen him look inappropriate at a woman. And I've never seen that in neither one of you either.
Well, thank you,
Yes.
Julie.
But that's huge because
It is.
I've seen that a lot in the church.
Yeah,
And it's just like, nope, I would not trust him or I would not trust her.
Yeah.
I mean, it goes both ways.
Yeah.
And I think once you've been in that situation, it's really easy to see that.
Recognize
And
it,
yes,
yeah.
in
See
other
it,
people.
I think
Yeah.
that's a stack up against the young married couples, again, going back to them, that there is so much of that.
Yes.
And like you said, people are wearing less clothes today
Yeah,
than what
and
they
right,
used to.
right.
And all of that goes against that. And it doesn't help whatsoever
Mm-hmm.
for those younger married ones. And they sit there with kids and
Right.
life going on and
Yes.
finances and everything else. And I think in this profession of being a first responder, and I'm not giving it this as an excuse, but I think it is a little bit different because of what you do. You can't take it home.
Right.
There's a lot of things that you can't unsee that play over in your mind in full living color and Dolby sound. But you just kind of keep stuffing all those down in, and I think that can become a determinant in a marriage as well. And I think that's something that we haven't taught. That was never taught me
Right,
ever
right.
in my whole fire service career as to how to manage those things. As I got towards the end of my career, it was going to end my career actually, and then you came along and wow, I'm sure glad you did, because that was the difference maker for me, was getting involved, was having a church family. I think that, we've talked a little bit maybe about the church here, but I think that was an important step for me, was having that local church and folks like yourselves that we can share things with and say, hey, I got this going on, man. What do you think? But I think those are all important things that we need in our lives to help navigate through this. And the younger generations, I mean, man, they pick up their phone and Uncle Google helps them through whatever.
Yes.
And
Right,
that's
wrong, or
not-
indifferent.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And most of the time, I think it's wrong.
It's wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it's worldviews and
Right.
instead of real life.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things, we're so, I think society and the worldview is all about helping self.
Right.
And, you go into well, I'm probably dating myself, but you go into a Barnes and Noble and I think people just Kindle it now or whatever, the books on
Right,
the,
yeah.
but you'd walk in and there'd be entire sections in the self-help section.
Yeah.
And I heard somebody say, if you could truly help yourself, there wouldn't be all these books needed, You need outside influence.
Yeah.
Whether that's
Relationships.
other
Right,
people,
right.
faith, for sure.
Yeah.
And realizing that you're not at the top of the heap, that you do need to reach out, and especially when times get tough and the evil one tries to separate you and isolate you from others.
Right.
That's the time you really need to be
Yeah.
fighting the surface of the water to stay swimming, and reaching out for a
Yeah,
hand.
and honestly, that's where I was when he came along. I mean, I didn't know which way to turn. It just seemed like the best way was to end it all,
Yeah,
and man, am I glad he came along.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was God orchestrated.
Yeah. It's so
Right. Perfect timing.
That's so cool. And God will show up anywhere. You always, again, I grew up thinking, well, God doesn't go to bars. He wouldn't walk in a place like that. Yeah, he would. He did for me, And he told me, I knew I needed to change all my friends when he did. It's like, wow, I need to change my friends. And I did. I went home and I found a Bible study that I could get into. I wasn't going to any kind of Bible study. I would go to church sometimes, but, I knew that I needed to change my life. And again, it was God majorly just out of the blue showing up. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and God is for us.
Yes, He is.
He wants us
Yes,
to be
He
successful. He's given us relationships, and we've often talked about the fact that having a department chaplain is pretty important. But the best case scenario, obviously, and this is just very subjective, is that, geez, when your chaplain becomes your pastor, that takes it to a whole new level. I want to introduce something heavy, a little bit more maybe difficult to talk about before we lighten it up, because I got some things I can lighten it up with. But I think, we talked a little bit before we started recording that there are things that people just don't talk about, especially in the church, or, we ignore it. And then the only reason we talk about it is because we're either judging somebody or whatever the case might be. But it's like, I didn't have anybody to tell me how to be successful in my marriage. I didn't have anybody, to tell me certain things, and you just have to learn the hard way. And my wife and I both come from broken homes, and the whole just the worldview that you have. I mean, faith was always a big part, but it was always acceptable, and it was always okay for guys to be involved in pornography. That's just normal. Oh, you're a healthy boy, and it's like, I didn't think anything was wrong, growing up. I was just like, well, that's what guys did, right? And then when you get married, and we joke around about my brother and I joke around about this. When we were younger in the trades, we would make fun of the older guys, always complaining about their wives didn't want to have sex, and so they had to go find it elsewhere. And we're just being honest and real here. And we used to make fun of them because as a young buck, we had no trouble with that. And then all of a sudden you get married, and kids come along, and grandkids come along, and you're like, and there's so many different things that could happen for couples, right? And then you realize, well, I gotta satisfy myself somehow. And it's like, there's no limits to what you can find nowadays, and it's just becoming the standard. There is no standard anymore, and it's like, hey, I'm a guy, or hey, I got needs, or I got this, I got a high sex drive. Well, I think it's important for us. First of all, I think there are deal breakers in a relationship. If your significant other is physically abusing you, that's a deal breaker. Even one time. And I tell women, and I tell them this all the time, I said, listen, your husband punched you, that's a deal breaker.
Yep.
I mean, like, you don't tolerate certain things.
You do not.
You never, ever do that to your significant other, ever. There's a problem there. If you have some indiscretions and you're looking at things you shouldn't, and, is that a deal breaker? No, that's not a deal breaker. We all struggle in areas, right? But the thing about pornography is that we've learned is that it actually rewires your brain. And there are people listening right now who are either thinking, that ain't no issue, dude. Listen, I look at stuff when I need to, I want to. It doesn't hurt to look. Oh, wait a minute. I want to make a statement here. That's how it all begins.
That's how it begins.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
one look, two, and then
Yeah.
and the way that we're designed, and we're designed this way, is that if you keep giving yourself the privilege of looking and the right to look, it starts off this way. And let's just keep it real. When I was younger, I'll use myself as an example. You know, those catalogs years ago with the women with their
Oh, yeah.
underwear.
Yes.
I shouldn't be looking at this, but I want to, you know. And the older you get, you want more.
Yep.
And then clothing. No, I don't want to see anybody clothed now. I want to see other things. And this is just normal. This is normal, and this is okay in our society. But what does it do to you? What is it doing in the context of marriage? How do you dishonor and disrespect your spouse and don't think there's anything wrong with it? At a certain point, you have to take responsibility and say, wait a minute, I made a commitment to this person.
Yeah.
I'm not going to look at anybody else and think thoughts. I'm not going to undress them in church, because I've had a lot of women say that to me. Oh, I had a problem undressing people in church. Why do you do that? Get control of yourself. Take control of your thought life. If one little look here leads to this, leads to that, and then eventually it's not enough anymore because the eyes are never satisfied.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
It's
It's
never
like,
satisfied.
it's like any addiction. I mean,
Yeah.
when you start off with something, pretty soon you got to have more and more
Right.
and more of
Yeah.
it to even,
Yeah.
I mean, in the physical,
Yeah.
whether it be
Food.
food,
Oh, sure,
whether it be
yeah.
whatever, you just fill in
But
the
then
blank.
again, our society and culture, what that has done to us in the food. I mean, even our government gives us the food triangle, which is messed up.
Oh, yeah, for
Yes.
sure.
You know,
Yes.
so really have to take control.
Yeah.
You really, and you
Yeah.
can't trust Google. You really have to
No.
read labels, et cetera, and it's hard to find the right information.
Yeah.
And it is an addiction, and that's
It
you
is.
know, that's what
Yeah.
that becomes
Right.
too.
That's right.
Oh,
and like
absolutely.
you said,
Yeah.
it takes more,
Yep.
and then more, and then
Yeah.
pretty quick, then it can go physical,
Right.
and then it's
Yeah.
done.
Yep.
Well, and somebody, and of course, I'm the guy that sits across the desk from couples who are having these issues, and I can distinct. I mean, once guys, and I say guys, I mean I'm just using men as a reference. Once they get addicted and it's ensnared them, it is very hard to get free, and it's a tough one. And I'm not saying it's hopeless. It isn't, but you do need you need mentors. You need accountability
Yeah.
partners. You got to have somebody. But I've dealt with guys who, just to appease the wife, will come. Well, my wife said she's going to divorce me if I don't come and talk to you. And it's
Yeah.
like the guy no
Yeah.
longer intends on stopping what
Right.
he's doing, you know.
Yep.
And I remember one guy actually came into the office. He was dragged in there by his wife, and you can tell he didn't want to be there. And I never said a word. The wife, so I said to the couple, so how can I help you? And she started talking, and as soon as she mentioned the pornography, he got up, literally threw the chair down, stormed out of the office, and she sat there and wept. Well, they're not married today because he had no intention of changing his behavior. It is going to hurt the marriage. It's going to hurt your loved one.
Well, it's disrespectful to her.
And you know what?
Yeah.
It's unrealistic.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Your
Yep.
wife
Oh,
can't
yeah,
compete with
totally.
that.
Right.
Your spouse
Right.
can't compete with that.
Well, so many times it's the excuse is, well, it's not physical. It's not. I'm not doing it with somebody else.
Right.
But you think of it, and we know of cases where even hardcore porn
Yeah.
isn't enough.
Right, that's
now it goes to children.
Children, yeah.
Now it
Yep.
goes to,
Animals
Yeah.
or
Oh,
whatever,
whatever.
you know.
No limit.
Yeah. Right.
No end.
right.
No.
And it's not in every case, but no different than saying, well, that's a gateway drug.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah.
a gateway too, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
no, it's just
Yeah.
there. But there
Gateway.
is answers. There's
There
answers
is.
for
Yeah.
it.
There's hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
There's
hope.
hope,
Yeah.
and there
That's
are
the-
answers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
beauty about it. With any addiction, there is help, but
Yes.
You have to want it.
you have to want
Right.
it
Yeah.
and then go for it.
Yes.
And put people around you that understand that
Right.
and can help you, not somebody else that's doing it too.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And you do.
Yeah. And you don't want to surround yourself with people who make excuses and justify it. Well, she doesn't satisfy me. Well, she gained 100 pounds and look at her. You know, you hear all kinds of things, and it's like, okay, So what we are advocating is this. We're advocating honesty with each other. Be honest and say, listen, I'm having a problem. You know, we don't have sex anymore. That's a problem for me. Okay, why aren't you having sex anymore? She hates my guts. Or I don't know what the problem is. Well, we can unravel this for people. We really can. If two couples are committed to each other.
Right.
It's like, listen, I want to help people. You want to help people. We can help. There is help. There is hope.
Right.
But you have to be honest enough and you stop making excuses.
Right.
It's like, okay, if your marriage is in jeopardy because of whatever the reason is, let's be honest. Number one, let's acknowledge, okay, we got a problem. And that's not an acknowledgement of weakness, right?
No.
Right.
I mean,
It's-
actually, that takes strength
yeah.
to, courage.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Look, we need to bring additional resources in for this one, so that's what we want to do, because if it is an addiction and it goes beyond what we're able to help them with, they need to seek professional help. Absolutely, positively, because there are things that have have gone in deviant sexual proclivities, which it's beyond the imagination. Like, I can't understand the mindset of a pedophile.
No.
I can't get with that.
Right.
I have a very hard time with that. And there are people who have sat across the desk and admitted to all kinds of things, and some of it you're like, oh my God, Lord, I don't even know what to do with this one. But it's real.
Right.
And someone once said it this way, and whatever you think of the word sin, that's not the point. The point is, this guy said, sin will take you farther than you ever wanted to go. It'll cost you more than you ever wanted to pay, and it'll keep you longer than you ever wanted to stay.
Yeah.
It is in our best interest to stop right now and say, listen, guys, I need help. I'm really struggling. I need help. Okay, great. We've got some resources. It's all confidential, but you and your spouse have to be together on this. It can't be like, well, no, I told him he better do this. No, if he wants to help, great. If not, there's nothing we can do for you.
Right.
Right.
Deal breaker. Is pornography a deal breaker? No, it should not be a deal
right,
breaker.
right.
And truthfully, there are many marriages who have been restored even after infidelity.
Absolutely.
That's not a deal breaker.
No.
Beating the snot out of your spouse, that's a deal breaker. Messing with little kids, that's a deal breaker.
Yep.
There are certain things that you have to say, I'm sorry. You
Yep.
got to protect yourself, your own sanity, and your own peace of mind. But in everything, it all starts with honesty and just admitting that, hey, I need some help. I don't want this to get out of hand. And to the other end of the spectrum, too, where we can say, do we have a responsibility to help satisfy our spouse sexually? Yeah, that's part of the agreement, isn't it? I mean, you don't want your spouse starting to look outside of that relationship.
Right.
So
Takes
get
two.
it worked out.
Takes two.
There are conversations that you can have to say, hey, what's going on here?
Right.
We don't ever nothing. We had, my wife and I were counseling with a couple where the husband just didn't want to touch the wife ever, and she's like, I don't get it. And we still don't know what the problem was, and it's still a problem. But it's like, that's more common than what you might think.
Yeah.
No, I'm just not interested anymore. Okay, you have a responsibility to work that out.
Right.
That's
Right.
part of the agreement or the arrangement. That being said,
Yep.
I told you that would be a little bit heavy. Let me just throw some of these little quips out there that people have said to me. You can be right or you can be happy, but you can't be both. Well,
You can.
so
you can.
so does that mean you compromise and always do it her way? Well, if you want to be happy.
I thought you weren't going to put us on the spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
It
takes
goes
work,
both
doesn't
ways.
it?
Yep, it goes both
takes
ways.
work. It does.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
does.
There are times that I do what I know you want to do, but you do the same thing for me.
It's like any relationship. There's always going to be sacrifice, in any good relationship. I mean, I don't care if it's labor agreements, if it's, when we're talking here at firefighters, whether it's, down to the marriage. It's in every relationship, there's always got to be that,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
There has to be.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's a tyranny.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Exactly.
So-
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, if somebody wants to change, they can. It sometimes it takes longer, you know, but you know, I think it just you need both. You need two people, and you know, if you're not willing to be honest, then you can't change.
Right.
And I think
You
you
have
brought
to-
up a great point too, you know, that it was discussed that, you know, seeking help in the world's eyes is a sign of weakness, in the world's eyes.
Yeah.
But in truth's eyes, it's a sign of strength and courage. And you know, before this thing's, you know, back in the fire service terms, before this becomes a 5-alarmer, let's get the resources.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, let's hit it with all we've got
Right.
when it's small and manageable,
Right.
instead of wait until it's out of control and then we lose everything.
Right.
So that would be my advice as far as if somebody's struggling, if you're having problems with your marriage or your relationships. It could even be with your kids, you know. Try and do it before it gets.
Right.
Yeah.
I heard somebody say, you know, kids are like concrete. When they're very fresh and young and new, easy to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
The longer it sets up, pretty soon, there's
Yeah.
nothing you can do.
That's right.
And it's already set in its ways. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
That's good advice. Get the resources coming. Get on it right now. Get after it right now. Don't just wait and hope that things will get better, because most likely they won't.
Right.
And then we tend to say, well, you know what? I'm just going to ignore it. I'm just going to. I got to focus on my job. I'm just going to bury myself in my work. You owe it to yourself to have a happy, healthy relationship. Don't you deserve that?
Right.
You do.
Yeah.
Why bother?
Yeah.
One final thing, and I've said this to my wife on more than I'll thank her. I say, you know, Val, thank you for choosing us, and please, I just ask you, just don't quit on us, and just be patient, because I'm always working on me. I'm always trying to do better and be better. But brother, I am telling you, sometimes I am so hard-headed and stubborn. And I like to say, well, I'm Italian. What did you think? But it's like, well, wait a minute, dude. You know, stop. And my wife says, why do you keep doing that? You know, it's like, I don't know. I'm stuck in this rut. And I'm trying, you know, we got this puppy mostly because she said, you know, she wanted a little puppy so that when we have an empty
Yes.
home soon,
Yes.
we don't want to be alone. It's like, huh? I was like, well, wait a minute.
Why? No.
Yeah, wait a minute here now. Yeah.
I'll be your puppy.
Yeah. I'm your lovesick puppy, you know. And you know, I got to thinking, it's like, well, why did we do that? Were we just out of our minds with stupidity or what? I mean, we're talking puppy. And so finally I just decided, you know, I'm going to do this for my wife, and I'm going to get involved with this. I'm going to show her that I'm going to do this with her. It's not going to be all her. Well, you wanted this dog, you know, so it was rough. It was, for the last 2 months, it's been brutal. I'm like, I am out of my mind. I'm sleep deprived, and worse yet, she wants the puppy sleeping in the bed. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, Lord help me. But I just decided, okay, I said to myself, Gary, you are stuck in a rut. You know, you like things a certain way. You don't want to be, you know, and it's like, it's time for change for Gary. It's time for Gary to come out of his comfort zone. And so I literally, now, I actually like having the little guy.
Aww.
And this morning, he's like snuggled up next to me, and I look down, he's just looking up at me with these long eyelashes, and I'm like, oh.
Cute.
He's the cutest little thing. But a change took place in me. At first, I fought it, and I was like, you're out of your mind. A puppy? Heck no. I don't want any more dogs, and I'm waiting for an empty nest so that I can just spend time with you. The whole bit, on and on and on. And it actually had the opposite effect, where it changed me, that I actually think about this dog and miss it when we're not home. And I'm doing this with my wife, not just for her. I'm doing it with her.
Sure.
And isn't that what we should be doing? It's like, I want to do this with you.
Yeah.
Well, allowing change to take place. You know?
Yeah.
You can.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a choice: allowing or refusing.
Right.
Yeah.
And you know, sometimes
Yeah.
we use our ethnicity,
Yeah.
we use our whatever, there again, fill in that blank too, to make an excuse why we aren't going to change.
Right.
And it's okay, well, that's one of those things that change, do things people hate.
Yep.
Change and things staying the same.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's so
it's
true.
like change is inevitable. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
You might
It
as well
is.
embrace it.
That's
and-
right.
Yep.
That's
and,
exactly right. That's exactly
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
We
I
do.
like to say not to embrace it so much as to manage it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and season, I mean, like you're in a season of refinement, and that's wonderful. And, you guys, you just, and like I said, I'm not trying to be silly with this, but you guys always seem like you're happy. Yeah, I know it's a choice. You choose to
Yes,
be.
absolutely
You
it
do.
is, yeah.
You may not always feel loving, and you may not always feel happy, but you have to choose happiness.
Yeah.
You have to choose joy. You have to choose one another. You have to choose to do things together. And if things aren't working, change it.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let it just stay the same
Right.
and just be.
Right.
You deserve so much better than that.
Or
You know.
you just go do your thing and I'll do my thing, and
Right.
that's how you live.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
it's like that would be so sad.
Well,
But
yeah.
but
Yeah.
we could choose to be like that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It is a choice.
Yeah.
We could be different people. But you have to work
Right,
at not going down that road,
Well, and that's right. You have to work at it. And I think a good way to conclude this this podcast is people, a lot of times they'll say, oh, I just loves him. Our relationship was made in heaven. Oh, I just loves him. And it's like, okay, you loves him or you loves her and your relationship was made in heaven, but all the maintenance has to be done down here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the grass might be
Yeah.
greener on the other side sometimes, but you still got to maintain the lawn.
Right.
Well, just water it.
There you go.
There's work that has to be done.
Yes.
It's not going to just work itself out.
Right.
And I had to mow my grass before coming here, and it's like that darn grass just keeps growing.
Oh, boy, doesn't
and
it, though?
man, I'm like, man, it was just like this. And my wife is like, aren't you like, going to be late? And it's like, yeah, I got to hurry up and I got to shower again, a second shower for the day, but it has to be done. And it's like, there's just some things that if you don't deal with it, it doesn't get done.
That's right.
Unforgiveness, get it
Yeah.
dealt with.
Oh, yeah.
Resentment, get it
Yeah.
dealt with. Unresolved issues, get it dealt with.
Yeah.
Issues with the kids, issues with the in-laws, any number of things. Get these things dealt with. Otherwise, they will fester.
Right.
And eventually,
Yes, they will.
at the point of no return where somebody's going to say,
Enough. Yep.
Yep.
enough.
Yep.
Yep.
Don't let that happen.
No. Yep.
So
The
we're,
more
we're
you let it
here.
go.
We're here to help, and I really appreciate you guys and your insight, perspectives, and your openness. In the event that somebody's like, boy, I would love to talk to Randy and Julie, all they would have to do is get a hold of us, and then I will put you guys in touch with them. And you guys, I recommend. In fact, in a perfect world, the world according to Gary, in a perfect world, you guys would be on staff with me as associate pastors, and you'd be paid, the same thing that we pay other volunteers. And I would have no problem referring couples to you just to sit down, talk with them, restore hope, and I have no problem recommending you guys, and to save me a
Thank you.
workload too. So.
Well, I think that's what happens to a lot of couples is that they don't know where to turn.
Yeah, yeah.
And everything is either expresses time or costs and not knowing what to do, and then they go out and, like I say, good old Uncle Google, they start going there
Yeah.
and they just become more confused.
Right.
Yeah.
When if you
Right.
find somebody that has been through it and
Yeah.
conquered it, that means a lot.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and you guys have been through a lot, and you've met the challenge. You came above, and now you're doing life together, and you do
Yeah.
emulate what I look at and I say, well, you guys, you still seem like you're on your honeymoon 18 years later, which is admirable to me.
Yes,
it's like,
we
wow.
are. We are.
I'm very excited
Yes.
and proud to know you guys as my friends and love you guys. And
Thank you.
not to mention you're just 2 doors down from me.
Yeah, that's
That
right.
works out
That's
nice,
right.
too.
It works out real
Yeah.
nice. So when I need marriage counseling, hey,
Yeah,
Come
well,
on
we're still
down.
going to build that tunnel that goes underground. Yeah, like Val and I have talked. You know, an
Oh.
underground tunnel that you could just,
Yeah.
you know.
I have to say one final thing. The best medicine ever in the whole wide world is when you and Val start laughing uncontrollably over nothing. And it's like, I want
Yep, I
so
would
much
agree
to
with
do
that.
more laughing.
I miss that. I
Yeah.
do.
Tell you what, that's a great segue for a conclusion.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
to put it out to the audience that if you want healing, laugh.
Laugh.
And that is one
Find
thing.
a purpose
Yeah.
to laugh.
We do laugh a lot.
Oh yes.
you
At
know.
ourselves.
Yeah.
mostly.
At our, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate you guys very
So-
much, and thank you for taking time to come.
Thank you.
And we thank you for being our guests, and look forward to some feedback. I hope we get some good feedback over this one.
Yep.
So
Yep.
thank you guys.
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure.
Yes.
Thank you.
Dispatch from Route 7 Command.
Man, go ahead.
Need a chaplain at this location?
10-4. Attention 3392. 3392, you're needed at the 8000 block of Route 7, multiple vehicle accident. Please acknowledge.
3392 is en route, 8000 block Route 7.
10-4.
In the darkest blackness of human carnage and suffering, police, fire, and EMS intercede on behalf of mankind. God Himself reaches out to those who suffer through their hands. Their service is a clear and unmistakable demonstration that God does not abandon people in the storms of life.